The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Tim Wilmot here from Wizard Systems. Thanks for joining me this afternoon for GoldMine 101, our regular series of short GoldMine presentations focusing on different topics around GoldMine. And this afternoon, I'm going to go through SQL queries, some examples of the SQL query feature of GoldMine and why you may want to use it. Now, this presentation will be about 20 minutes or so in duration. It's just an overview of the SQL query feature in GoldMine. It's not meant to be in-depth training. My company, Wizard Systems, offer many extensive training options. We can provide online training around the SQL query feature. And it is also included in our advanced GoldMine training course that we run on a regular basis here at Wizard. Now, the audio part of this presentation is one way only. If you've got any questions, please type those into the question box on your meeting control panel, and I'll do my best to answer those at the end. Probably best to type them in as you think of them rather than waiting till the end of our call. Also, towards the end, I'll give you an update on any GoldMine product news just to keep you up to date there. And the presentation is being recorded this afternoon. After the presentation, you will get an automatic email from our system with a link to the recording, which you can play back at your leisure, share with your colleagues, and also we'll probably post it up on our YouTube channel as well. Okay, so let's get started. As I normally do, just a very brief mention about our company, Wizard Systems, long-standing supplier of GoldMine and CRM solutions. All we do is CRM, and in our time, we've implemented well over 3,000 systems all over the UK, further afield as well, into different types of companies. And we provide a total service around GoldMine: upgrades, new software, customizing it, integrating it with other things, writing reports, setting up automated processes. We can provide any training you want as well. That can be at your site, or you can come to us. We're based just north of Bristol, or we can do it online if that's your preference as well. And finally, we provide ongoing support as well via our GoldMine help desk, our dedicated GoldMine help desk. Okay, so the topic on our call today is SQL queries. What are they all about? And I want to try and show you some examples of previously built SQL queries to show you the power of them and why they're different from other ways of accessing data in GoldMine. And of course, most of you on the call, I'm sure, will be familiar with the normal ways, the most common ways of creating lists of people, companies in your database that have something in common, namely filters and groups. But think of the SQL Query Builder, and 9 times out of 10, using filters and groups, you've got to find the information you want to. But if for some reason where the information is in your GoldMine system, you can't get at it with filters or groups, then it's most likely an SQL query will do that. And also, SQL queries will get to some parts of the application and building up lists of information from different areas as a combination, different areas in GoldMine that would be very difficult, if not impossible, with a filter or a group. So to get to SQL queries, you can access that from your tools menu in GoldMine. And there's my SQL query option. And this will, well, you'll be familiar with this area. This is where we can see our normal filters and our groups, but also we've got here SQL query on this 4th tab. Now, as you create these queries, and SQL query is a language all on its own, a computer language, a syntax of all of its own. And you can, as you become familiar with SQL queries, you can, where my cursor's flashing here, you can type in there straight away what the query might be, what sort of data you're looking for in the approved syntax of SQL. But let me show you some that I've created earlier, just so you get a flavor of what they look like and the sort of information they can retrieve that, as I say, might be difficult or impossible with other methods in GoldMine. So the first one I'd like to show you, quite a popular one, is maybe you want to see all of your contacts without an email address. So this is what I said, this is one I've created earlier, and this is this SQL query syntax. And very typically they start with a select statement, some fields, where we're going to get the data from, then some kind of condition or some parameters on that query. You will get used to the terminology that SQL is using here, and you'll be able to, with your cursor, I could go in here and amend any part of this that I want to. Anyway, so that's an existing one that I've created before, and now to run it, to action on it, I click on this query button, and that then will very quickly, and my database has got well over 12,000 contacts in it, but here we are, we can see all of the contacts. We're just selecting here the GoldMine account number and the GoldMine company name. The account number, for those of you that may not know, that's the unique number that GoldMine gives every record you create, every contact record you create in the system. And most of the time, you'll never see it, but it's a unique number for that record. Quite an important bit of information for certain things you may want to do with that data. So that's the first example there, quite a useful one. And incidentally, if anyone listening to school, if you want any copies of these SQL queries, just email me or email any of us at Wizard Systems. I can send these to you. You're not going to do any danger with these queries. They're just interrogating the data. They're not actually amending any data. So don't worry if something is wrong. And if there is some error with the syntax, well, when you click on that query button, it just won't run. You'll get some kind of error message on the screen. So you just got to try and fathom out where the error might be, and then click on that query button again. Let's go for another one. A count of calendar records. Count of cal records there. Quite useful because when you are scheduling activities in GoldMine, or indeed any CRM system, it's good practice to complete them when you've done them, because you don't want to have a situation where there's loads and loads of outstanding activities and you can't see the wood for the trees sort of scenario. So this is a good little indication here. This is quite a large number. If you think how many employees you've got and then how many outstanding activities you've got, you can do the maths on that to think, no, there could be something wrong here. Maybe there's some uncompleted activities. So we could then delve a little bit deeper, having that initial summary query. Okay, another one. Counts of email activities by user. So how many emails have we done by people in our team, GoldMine users? Query that. And that would be, this is an example, I don't know whether you can see in this SQL query, but there's a date range here, quite an old date range, but of course we could add on that additional parameter, show me all this information, but from this date to this other date, and a nice little summary there of by user, how many in the inbox, how many are filed, how many are sent, and so on. Another one, let's go down through these in alphabetical order. Customers with no pending actions. That might be quite a useful one to have a view at and think, well, how many customers where there's nothing going on with. So I could click on that, and that would then show me. And these columns are decided. You might be able to see these columns here: account number, company, contact name, interest, type, stage, and so on. And you can decide what columns and the sequence those columns are going to be. Another one I've got here. Duplicate email addresses. Quite difficult to do elsewhere in GoldMine, but click on query there, and that will actually show me here duplicate email addresses, which can be allowed in your GoldMine system. By default, it won't. So if you add in a new record, it won't accept a duplicate email address. But there may be situations where some contacts share an email address, like an info at address or a sales at address. So you may want to allow certain duplicate email addresses to slip in there. But there's a nice little query just to get a summary of that. We can use our scroll bar on the right hand side here to scroll through those. Let's then, another summary one here I've got is to look at all customers. Yes, number of customers in each county. So I query this. This will then give me a quick little summary so I can see where most of my customers are. So Devon features heavily, Dorset, Cheshire, and so on. Another useful one that we use regularly at Wizard Systems, particularly when we're giving advice on upgrading GoldMine, is to ask you for what version of SQL you're using. So SQL, of course, is the database that GoldMine is sitting on, and there's different versions of SQL that's been provided by Microsoft. Over the last few years, we've been supporting 2005, 2008, 2012, 2016, and so on, and forwards. But it may be useful when we're upgrading GoldMine to know what SQL version you're running. So this is it, select space at version. Looks a little bit weird, but it does provide you quickly with all the information we want to know. The actual version of SQL Server and what service pack you're on as well. Something else. Let's have another last look at this one here. Top 4 records. Show me the top 4 records or top whatever it might be, top 50 records in your GoldMine database by number of records attached to it, by number of transactions, or in this example, activities. How many history records have we done against these top customers? So click on query there, and there we can see the count and the company name, the count of history records that we've got. So you can see here we've got quite a lot of histories, phone calls, emails, meetings, tasks, other actions recorded against these contacts. You might notice in the top right corner here, all these SQL queries that you create, you build, are stored under your username. You can, of course, if you've got user access to do this, you can look at other users. So I could click on Stuart as a colleague's name, and then I can click on, one of his or her SQL queries and query that. And there we go, an SQL query created by somebody else. Now, this language that we're using, the syntax that we're using here, you can be introduced to it in a really nice, easy way with the SQL Query Builder in GoldMine. And that's this button here. So when you're not too familiar with this SQL syntax, you might be able to build what you want to do. You might be able to build using this build tool. So I can click on build here, and it will take me through a little wizard that will prompt me for the different bits of information that I want to know to build up my SQL query. The first bit of information that GoldMine wants to know is, what's the primary area that you're looking at for this query? Well, it could be primary contact information, it could be outstanding activities, completed activities, or some of the other related files. So I could, for example, maybe I want to see a list of everyone or all of the sales. Let's look at all the sales I've made in my GoldMine system. So I could click on completed activities there, then click next. Now I'm prompted for some more detailed information, date ranges, usernames, so I could focus on sales made by a particular user, but certainly I want to select activity type. Remember the history is tracking not only sales, but phone calls and meetings and emails as well. So I want to certainly select forecast sales there. Click Next. So this is just confirming that choice there. All history activities, I could select linked or unlinked activities, whether they're linked to a contact record in my GoldMine system. Click Next. There's that SQL query, starting off with that select statement. So it's selecting from contact history where the record type is an S. It's a sale. So I can click Finish there and click on Query. And there it is. Probably rather a few more columns than I might want, but you get the general idea. We can see the date of the sale. We can see the value of the sale. And we can see the sale description as well. So that's a brief run through the SQL Query Builder. Quite different in usage to filters and groups. As I say, a majority of the time you're going to be quite satisfied, happy with using filters and groups. But in the odd occasion where the information is in GoldMine, filters and groups can't find it. That's where you need the SQL Query. You need to use the SQL Query Builder or consult with Wizard Systems to see if there's another way around it. So what I normally do on our sessions is open this out now to any questions you may have. So any queries, questions around this feature of GoldMine, or indeed anything GoldMine related, please type those in. I'll do my best to answer those. First question from Alice. Can you query databases outside of GoldMine? No, you can't, Alice, but you can. There's a feature of GoldMine called dashboards. I don't know whether you're familiar with that, but dashboards, yes, you can. So you can create a GoldMine dashboard looking at data from some other application, if we can see it from whatever your login is. So SQL Queries, no, but a dashboard, yes. Dheeraj, we have detailed records to store what products we've sold. Can we do an SQL of that? Yes, you could. Certainly an SQL Query Builder would do that. Using the SQL Query Builder, Wizard would do that. Also, you might be able to do it. You should be able to do it with groups, using groups and selecting detail records and the value within those detail records, if that's the way you're doing it. That should do it. Next question from Craig. I see you had a survey tab on your GoldMine record. What was that, as we do surveys? That's a little add-on that we have featured in the past. It's a survey tool. It's a sister product to IntelliClick, which is a very popular email marketing solution for GoldMine. It allows you to build up, basically this survey tool allows you to build up very clever little surveys, email them out to your customers, and the data is then going back into GoldMine, all the questions that you ask and all the responses on those questions, which of course you can report on. That is the survey tab. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions coming through. If any more late questions come through, I'll answer those separately via email. What I'd like to do is just give you an update on GoldMine news. We do have a GoldMine training course next week, an advanced training course on Wednesday, where we will be covering filters groups in more detail and the SQL Query Build Wizard. Please contact us if you want information on that and pricing. The latest version of GoldMine is out now, which is 2018.2. We're just beginning to implement that across some of our GoldMine customer sites, and certainly new installations will now be on 2018.2. Got some nice security enhancements in that. And as regards future GoldMine presentations like this, if you've got any suggestions of future topics, anything that's on your mind that might be popular or or would be of interest to other like-minded GoldMine users, please email me, tim@wizard-systems.com. Be happy to include those. I'll just give you my contact details, tim@wizard-systems.com. But thanks very much for your time today. Thanks for your support, and we'll catch up with you next time. And watch out for an email with a link to the recording. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.